Hi, I'm Brady Calhoun. I'm with News 13. We have Superintendent Bill Husfelt here with us. He's going to do a live interview discussing the start of school and some other issues going on with the school system. Bill, how you doing today?
Doing good, Brady. Thank you for having me on.
So how'd the start of school go? How are we doing
Really
so far?
good. Until about Wednesday evening, we thought we were living in another world because we hadn't had to deal with COVID in the schools yet, and it was really, really going smooth. And we've had a few cases, but considering all the angst everybody was feeling about starting school and everything, I think it's been great. The teachers have just been phenomenal with all the changes they've had to go through, and I know the parents are very excited to have school back.
How many students went back to school, and how many are still learning from home?
It's between 75 and 80% are in the brick and mortar, and we have about 25% are working on the Baylink. And then we still have some that are homeschooling. We always have had homeschool students, and then there are the charter schools have about 5,000 students in their mix there. But it really is amazing the number of students now that are saying we want to come back. That's what we're dealing with right now. We are dealing with the parents that say, I've changed my mind, I want my student to come back now. And so we're doing that on a school-by-school case basis because we want to let them come back as long as we have room in the classroom. So I think most of the schools have welcomed them back, and I know the parents are, as I said, very excited to be back.
Now, like you alluded to, you've had a sort of coronavirus outbreak. You know, how have you dealt with that? Do you think it's going to get worse? I mean, what do you anticipate?
Well, first, I don't want to say it's an outbreak. Here's the scenarios that have happened. Parents have sent their kids to school when they shouldn't have sent their kids to school. And so because of that, then when we find out, we have to self-quarantine these students. And so we believe parents have the best of intentions, but if nothing else comes out of this interview today, parents, please, if your child has been exposed or has a fever or has been sick, please keep them home. We've had to quarantine kids from something that came into school that should never have come into school. Now, that we know of, they haven't been sick, but we are working with the health department, as I'm sure you're aware, and the health department guides us on step-by-step in each individual case. So the only instances we've dealt with students were originating from a home, and then the kids came to school and they shouldn't have. And so that's the hard thing we've got to get families to understand, because it not only affects your family, but it affects multiple families across lots of different spectrums in schools.
And you don't just want. I saw a letter I think you sent to parents, maybe, or you guys put on Facebook, and it's not just that you want kids to stay home if they've got coronavirus. You want kids to stay home if they're sick. You know, and I think that's a distinction that you probably want to make. That if they've got some kind of sickness, you want them to stay home.
Right. We never wanted them to come to school if they were sick. But I mean, I know examples, and it's more than one, where parents have given their kids Tylenol because they had a fever and then sent them to school. And we can't do that. With what we're dealing with, it's not fair to the teachers. And the teachers are the ones that are out there putting themselves on the line and doing what we're asking them to do, and we need the parents in the community to ask them to do what they're supposed to do. So, you know, I know it's difficult. I know it impacts jobs and work, but if it impacts your job and work, that's one thing. But then when it starts multiplying and goes into 100 different families because you're not doing what we ask you to do, then it becomes a major issue. But again, we haven't had an outbreak at school. What we've had is, okay, you students have been around this student that shouldn't have been here, and now we're going to make you self-isolate or quarantine for 14 days. So that's been the big challenge.
The thing that I think, you know, and I'm a parent with a kid in Bay District schools, and I think the thing that I'm concerned about is that this won't be sustainable, that at some point you guys are going to have enough of a problem or a big enough problem that you're going to have to shut down again. What do you think the likelihood of that is?
I think it's possible because this is all so new, but I also think like this. I mean, all the restaurants have been open and the businesses have been open, and so if you look at all the data is pretty good right now. And so I will tell you what the health professionals have told us since day one, and we have regular conference calls with them and communicate with them. They said this is not a pediatric event. They aren't worried that it will increase. The key is letting your guard down. Let me give you an example. We had some school board employees that went to a function where they were with other people, and it was a buffet-style function. First of all, I didn't know anybody did buffets anymore. But because they were there and they touched the utensils that someone had it, now they're all quarantined for 2 weeks. And so it's a mindset of letting your guard down. You have got to be careful everything you do. Now, I don't see us having a big issue if we keep doing what we're doing right now. And the key is we've got to have people have got to wear their mask. And people say, well, don't mask, don't work. Well, here's what I think. And look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not. I mean, I read all the stuff like everybody else. But I think when you wear the mask, you're more careful. You stay away from people further when you wear the mask because you know why you're wearing the mask. We're hand sanitizing more. I mean, it's just a reminder to us to be more careful. And so I do think, we are doing things to prevent from having to close whole schools. Now, eventually, we might get to a point where we have to say, okay, this class has to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. I thought that's what we would do back in March when they told us to close for 2 weeks, and then we all know what happened there. But so the DOE has made it very clear they want to take a surgical approach to this. They don't want to close the whole school. They want to go around. That's why all teachers were collecting seating charts. We have seating charts for buses so that we know the proximity of where the student that might have had COVID-19, where they were to other students, so we can reach those families and tell them what they need to do.
Okay.
It's complicated.
It is, and I know you guys are doing what you can. Do you think teachers have enough supplies in their classroom to sort of keep the classroom clean and all that kind of stuff? I mean, have you guys? I know you guys said you were going to do that. Have you been able to do that?
Yes, and in fact, we just had a meeting on that today because we think we've got another alternative to even keep even more supplies. We bought, thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer, and what we found out was you can take that stuff and put it on a rag or a paper towel and use that to clean surfaces with too, because we've been using the wipes. We've given all the classes wipes and everything, but we found out we can also use the hand sanitizer to do that too. So we're going to keep buying that, and I've been working with the county, and they're helping us some on getting more of those supplies, but we have plenty right now. We're probably, by the end of next week or the following week, we've got every hallway has hand sanitizer, and I think by the end of the next week or two, we'll have a hand sanitizer in every classroom even. And so we're going to keep those things going, and we just got to remind people to take care of yourself and be vigilant and keeping your hands away from your face and wearing your face mask when we ask you to. And that's the key to this is protecting yourself and being smart, not letting your guard down.
Yeah. Let's shift topics for a minute. The school district has received 2 federal subpoenas. Received one last year. It received one in July, I believe was the date it was received. What's the process when a federal subpoena comes in? What do you guys do?
Well, somebody usually notifies me because sometimes they've even brought subpoenas to my house. I mean, it just depends on who it is or whatever. I've got them at my house. I always take them and give them to our risk manager or send them directly to our board attorney, and then they take it from there. And we don't have meetings on these things. We don't discuss them. In fact, many subpoenas on there, especially the federal ones, tell you, don't talk about this. Do not, this is confidential. I can't remember the phrase they use, but a lot of them like that will say, don't talk about it. Our rule of thumb, and I've been trained this way, Franklin Harrison's a brilliant attorney, and he's got a great staff, but our rule of thumb is always get it to them, let them take care of it, and we don't touch it. And they will tell us what we need to do when we need to do it.
You're talking about your legal team at that point.
Well, in Franklin Harrison, his law firm that does that. And so we do everything that they tell us to do when they tell us to do it. And so we never change that. It's always been that way. We don't alert people when we get subpoenas or public records requests. There's a process for that, and I think Franklin Harrison has explained that several times to people that that's the process we follow. And one of the reasons is that I've been deposed many times over my career. And one of the questions that attorneys ask you or investigators ask you is, what conversations have you had? And so I learned a long time ago, don't have any conversations. So when they ask you, and I can literally say, I've had no conversations about this, because we give it to the attorneys and let the attorneys do what they are supposed to do to make sure we're in compliance with whatever is being subpoenaed.
Now, this particular subpoena, I mean, you get subpoenaed. When you say you get subpoenaed, I think we want to sort of clarify. I'm sure you're talking about civil cases, you know, somebody suing a teacher maybe, or an employee suing the school district. Maybe for whatever reason in some other criminal case. But a federal subpoena, it seems to me like that's a rare occurrence. Do you guys get a lot of federal subpoenas?
I don't think we get a lot of federal subpoenas, but to be very candid with you, Brady, I don't look and find out where they come from. I mean, I treat every subpoena the same way. We get it to the people that are supposed to guide us and tell us what to do. And so I don't even know who got served this subpoena in July. And I think the other one might have been in January. I don't think it was last year. I think it might have been in January is what somebody said to me. This is the second one. The first one was in January, so I'm not really sure when it was. But I don't know who got served this time. I know it wasn't me because I would have remembered getting it. I don't know. Sometimes they bring them to the switchboard. Sometimes they serve directly to the attorney. Sometimes it goes to our communications office. Sometimes, I mean, I know board chairman Steve Moss has been served before directly, and then he will take it and get it to risk management. There's a process for us to do this, and again, we don't have conversations about this. We don't go out there and talk about it because we have our attorneys to take care of it and make sure we comply with whatever's being requested, whether it's a federal subpoena or not. I mean, I know federal sounds bigger, but to me, a subpoena is a subpoena. We've got to treat all of them as very important and make sure we comply with whatever a judge or an investigation is asking, and that's what we do.
When this one came in and you were notified about it, did you think it would have that if it came out, it would have an impact on the election? I
didn't even think about it. In fact, when they showed me, I thought, well, we've already done this. I thought maybe it was the same one over again. And then Heather, who works for Franklin, reached out to the office. And again, I haven't even talked to Heather about this because I just don't have these conversations. She reached out to find out what we needed to do in the time frame because it came out right as we were getting school started and dealing with COVID and everything. And so she got us an extension on it. And again, I never had a conversation with Heather. She did that on her own because she knows how crazy it is to get all these kind of documents together when we get bombarded. And we get bombarded quite a bit. People want all kinds of things. I'll give you an example. Somebody yesterday, and I think I know who it was, asked for our financial disclosure forms. And those are public record. We don't collect those. We fill those out and send them into the state. The state keeps those. They're out there on some state website. And so it's just out there. But we don't have everything somebody asks us to get all the time. We have to tell them where they can get it. And that's the challenge we have, is trying to convince people that's not something that we keep. That's something that you're going to have to go and find on your own because that is not a requirement for the district schools to keep.
You know, you've said this several times, but I just want to go ahead and ask: did you ever tell an employee to hide this subpoena, to keep it secret till the election was over?
Never had that conversation. My first thought was, okay, just tell me what I need to do. I mean, just tell me what it is I need to do to get whatever out. The first one in January, I'm pretty sure it was January. Now, I might be wrong, but
it may
for some reason, January stuck in my mind.
Sure.
We didn't tell anybody about that, but I mean, it became news. I mean, you know, I don't know how you guys find out what you do, but we did everything that we were asked. We sent all of it forward. We replied, did everything. I think we did everything. I'm pretty sure. I know the attorneys, how hard they work at it. But we did everything that we were asked to do, and then later on it came out. I mean, look, I think yesterday when the city of Panama City Beach got the same kind of subpoena we got, it ought to tell people that, look, I've got all the respect in the world for the FBI and for these people doing this investigation. These aren't dumb people. These are very smart people. They know what they're looking for. They're going to ask the right questions. They're going to do a thorough investigation. I'm confident that everything they're asking us for, we're going to provide, and they're going to see that we are doing everything in the exact way we're supposed to do it. And so the one thing is I learned, don't cause yourself a problem by having conversations about it or putting things out there publicly that will be misconstrued. And so I don't, and I've never had a conversation about covering anything up or not complying with it, because that gets you in more trouble than if you just go ahead and just are candid with people right up.
And to be clear, I mean, we've said this online and we've said this in the stories. We WMBB has been the first to report on the Lynn Haven subpoena, the first school district subpoena, and the second school district subpoena. And the way that works is we get a tip. We don't know the subpoena exists. It's not like federal agents will call us and say, oh, by the way, we served a subpoena. We get a tip from somebody in the organization, whoever that may be, and we put in a records request and we get it. And in the case of the second school board subpoena, we got that tip 3 days after the election. So we put in the request 3 days after the election. But it does, I mean, I think you would agree that for whatever reason, because it came out that way, it does have sort of a look that concerns people. I mean,
and I get that, but I think it's no different than what happened in January. I mean, we don't publicize that we get those things, and even if we'd have complied with it and not got an extension, you still wouldn't have known about it. I mean, unless somebody else would have called you. I mean, we just don't, and it's something, whoever told you or however you found out, we don't advertise those things. We never have. And as I said, we get these things all the time. And we don't, and I think you're going to find, and I think you said you've subpoenaed the other, or not subpoenaed, you've requested the records from other agencies in cities. And I think that, look, we all know what the FBI, I think, is looking for. If you've read through the thing, you know what the kind of things they're looking for, and they're going to do their investigation. And I have every faith and trust that they're going to do a thorough investigation, and we're going to give them everything we have of whatever they're asking us for.
You know, the second subpoena asks about the construction of Tommy Oliver. Mm-hmm. It asks about some buildings at Bay High. It obviously asks about a local contractor named GAC. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you do anything illegal here, Bill? Did the school system do anything illegal?
Well, first, in 2 weeks, we're having a meeting, and we're doing it for a lot of reasons. But we have 2 new school board members coming on, and then we're doing it for the press because the reporters change quite often that cover us, and we want everybody to see the whole process as we do. I can't authorize a purchase order for anything over $50,000 unless it's an emergency. And you say, what's an emergency? Emergency would be like if the HVAC went out of the school today and we had to order one and had to be trucked in from Atlanta. I could do an emergency purchase order right then and take it to the next board meeting, and then I would explain why I did the emergency purchase order. The superintendent does not get a vote. The superintendent makes recommendations, and the recommendation, and this is part of what we're going to do in that workshop in a couple weeks, the school board has a policy for construction and contracts. That policy has to be followed, and there are committee members on that are appointed by the board and represent facilities department and various other departments, including construction, including contracting. And so what they do is they come together and they do the interviews and they do the paperwork that's required, and then they make a recommendation to me. I take that recommendation and forward it to the board, and then the board votes on it. So there's and I'm not trying to say anybody's guilty or not guilty, but I can't authorize a check to be signed over to somebody in 2 days. We just in the past month finished paying off all of the contractors that did our remediation and restoration after the hurricane. That was after a lot of lawyers being involved and construction people being involved and people arguing over pricing and everything, and it's all tied to FEMA. But I don't have the authority just to start writing checks right and left. In fact, very, very rarely do we even send checks to people in less than probably a month. I think we have in most of our contracts that we have 30 days to pay people. I'll give you an example of something we're working on right now, and this is the process for it. We're getting ready to buy 3,000 more Chromebooks. Everybody knows why we need more Chromebooks. It's going to be about $700,000. It'll be a contract bid with the state of Florida, but I will forward that. Our purchasing department is going to do what they have to do to make sure we do this on the up and up the way we always do, and then it'll go to the board for final approval. But we don't have the ability to do what some cities and counties obviously have the ability to do. And so that there's, a lot of people think, well, he's spending that money. And another thing, let's come back to Tommy Oliver Stadium.
Right.
We never had a contract for $7 million. It was never a $7 million contract. It wasn't $7 million over budget. The first price that the board ever voted on was, I think it was like $13.87 million, right at $14 million. So I'll say it was $14 million. That price never changed after the board voted on it. Bill Husfelt didn't sign a contract for $7 million. Nobody signed a contract for $7 million. Where that came from, Mike Gavlak Field at Arnold was built 23 years ago at Arnold for $7 million. Now, the board and everybody that was involved in rebuilding Tommy Oliver realized, look, that's not what we want for Tommy Oliver Stadium. So that project, it was very expensive. It was. But we got extra dollars from donations in the community. We did a lot of things that we thought were smart. We used the old driver's ed building for one of the team locker rooms. We did a lot of very smart things. We took the old shed that housed all the equipment, took it apart, and put it on the other side of the stadium. So, I mean, yes, it was $14 million. It was never $7 million. It was never $7 million over budget. But, all those documents are there. Everything is there. We will give whoever the subpoena originated from will get every document they requested.
Do you guys have a rule where you always go with the lowest bidder, or do you sometimes not go with the lowest bidder? How does that work?
We go with the lowest bidder, but sometimes there is a very small part where local comes in, and I can't remember the percentage.
You have the local preference?
We have a local preference thing that our board attorney guided the school board in how to put that in there. But again, our attorney guides us in that process. Bill Husfelt doesn't get to make that decision. We have a purchasing process, and that is all done. I think that might have come into play twice in the 10 years or so that policy's been in effect. And it's been on very small items. It's never on something big like construction projects. And so, we have a lot of construction projects going on. I got it was so funny. I got an email from somebody about 2 years ago fussing about the company that got the new school out at the beach. Well, the company he thought got the new school didn't get the new school. So I had to say, well, that's not who actually got it. This is the company that got it. And so there's just a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of misinformation that gets out there. We do projects with Allstate Construction, Reliance South, GAC, Culpeper. I mean, there's all kinds of companies we do. We don't have just one company we do construction projects with.
Do you have any concerns? I mean, I don't want to ask you to speak for other people, but do you have any concerns about school board employees or school board members that maybe they were going on trips? We've seen that in other places. They were, getting gifts of some kind. I think there was an RV involved in one of these cases. Have you seen any of that?
No, none of that at all. And I will tell you, I have a used golf cart I bought that's in my driveway, and I did buy a brand new John Deere riding mower that I got on 24 months, no interest. So that's the two things that I did personally buy. But and let me tell you this, I'm so cognizant of what things look like. There has never been a GAC or a Reliance South or a Culpeper or any of those companies' trucks in my driveway, nor have they ever touched my house. I had $100,000 damage to my house, like almost everybody else in Bay County. I contracted with Williamson Brothers. Look it up. They're from Ocala. I'm giving a plug to them. They did all my work. All the people that were that company are from South Florida, and I did that because I didn't want the perception of a local company doing that. And I did most of the yard work myself. I paid people to cut the trees down that were not local. I paid a tree grinder to come just again, like everybody else, just to keep trying to fix things. And so I know that people will say that that's why they did that. So I just didn't deal with any of the local companies just because I didn't want to deal with that.
I think we've covered it. Before we move on, is there anything else you want to say about the subpoena issue? Anything else you want the public to know?
Well, in Brady, I did this because this is a live thing, and I wanted everybody. In some news people, not all of them, like to cut and paste things together and twist it. And I'm just not going to play that game. I'm 62 years old, and I feel like in my life right now, I don't have time to play games with people. If you want to answer me a question, you want to cover it fairly, then I'll answer it. I knew that this was live, and I could share the whole truth and not have to worry about a snippet of the truth out there. And so look, Bill Husfelt isn't going to jail for anything. Now, unless Tommy Ford doesn't like where I parked out there, or the police chief doesn't like where I parked out there, I'm pretty good. I'm not in any trouble. But I know that people like to guess, and social media is going to be the end of this world as we know it. But I haven't committed any crimes and haven't done anything immoral, unethical, or illegal that could in any way be misread as they've got you. I mean, I just, you know
what you've done and what you haven't done.
I know what I've done and haven't done. And I'm going to say this, and I know the FBI doesn't always get kudos for what they do. They're the best law enforcement agency in the world, except for maybe the sheriff's department. And no, seriously, they are the best law. These people are smart. They're not dumb. They're going to do a thorough investigation, and I'm confident what's going to happen when they get done.
All right, moving on. We've had 2 years with massive disruptions for the students. Obviously, for parents, for teachers, disruptions everywhere. But you've got Hurricane Michael disruption. Now you've had the pandemic. How's that going to impact these students in the long term?
Well, it's definitely having an impact. Let me tell you what our friends at Life Management, we had a conference call with them about a week before we started school. And these people are so smart, and they care about people's lives, and they see what's going on in the real world. They told us that our kids are going to have more problems now than they had after the hurricane. That's how bad it is. The drug addiction and alcoholism and what they're living in and their family situations is worse now for so many more than it was after the hurricane, that we've just got to stay on top of it. Now, I will say this. I think Bay District Schools is better prepared than anybody per capita, per student, ready to prepare and prepared to help those students. And the reason is because we were already putting this mental health component in our schools even before the hurricane. Then after the hurricane, we got more money, and we recently got $11 million grant to really beef it up. So every one of our schools has extra hands-on help with counseling and physical health components to it. And so we're better off. Our challenge is, though, right now is finding employees. We need more support employees, and they're just hard to find out there because there's still so many people that, one, never came back after the hurricane, but two, right now, still don't feel comfortable going back to work. So that's where our real challenges are. The more people we get in a school, the better off we are able to help more students. And so we feel confident in all that.
What's your, you've won re-election, you've got 4 more years. What's the agenda for the next 4 years?
Just survive this pandemic right now. I mean, who could imagine, I figured the hurricane would be the worst thing I'd ever have to deal with in my career. But I will tell you this, we started school last Thursday. We've been a little over a week now. We're into technically week 2, but our 7th day of school. The anxiety Wednesday before school started, I don't know if they can see, it was way up here. Mm-hmm. When we started school Thursday, I was going down, the anxiety, everybody was just so relieved. And so, a lot of families are hurting right now, whether it's illness or job loss or homelessness or not being able to pay their bills or whatever. And so the schools is the only safe place many of these kids have. It's the only place they have to feel normal and to feel loved and cared for. And so that's why we have to be open. That's what all the psychologists say and the psychiatrists say. Kids need school because of what they're dealing with at home right now. And so we're providing that. But our citizens need to give a kudos and a pat on the back to our teachers the way we do to first responders, because our teachers are doing a phenomenal job dealing in a situation that they are very nervous about. And you got to remember, you don't know what's going on in a teacher's home. They might have an elderly parent living with them. They might have some kind of immune system issue at their home or in their family. I've got 2 83-year-olds that live in my house. My in-laws have lived with us since the hurricane. Mm-hmm. And so we all have to be more careful. But remember, those teachers are going through that too. So thank a teacher when you get a chance.
What changes do you think the school system needs to make in the next 4 years? Are there anything you want to improve on, anything that you think I'd really like to tackle this issue this time around?
Well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say school grades aren't important. They are important. But, I mean, if I had to list the top 5, school grades would probably be number 4 or 5. I think we know school safety and security is number 1, the mental wellness of our students and taking care of them. And I think the rebuilding of our school system and our community has got to be in the top 3. I just shared with one of our new school board members a schematic first design of Everett K-8, what it's going to look like and what our plans are for it. That's the kind of thing I want to do. I want to bring our schools back. I want Patterson to open back up full. I want Everett to be that K-8 school that we envision it to be for that community. And here's why we've got to do it. People say, well, why are you talking about it? Tyndall's not going to wait on us to get ready. We've got to be ready before Tyndall. So the people that come and move in and that are going to start working at Tyndall, they're going to bring their children with them and their families with them. And so we better have the school capacity to help them. And so Everett's going to be a big part of that, a very big part of that whole picture.
What do you need to do to reopen Everett, to reopen Patterson, to get these schools back up and running? I mean, is that a matter of getting finances from the federal government, or what is it?
FEMA's the big part. FEMA's the part for Everett. I mean, the funding for that is what's slowing that down. But that is huge. But with Patterson, it's not so much FEMA and funding. Here's what happened. So many people don't know this. We have 17 classes at Patterson of pre-K going on right now. You say, well, why are they there? Because their building's been destroyed, because they can't get in there. So should we kick them out of Patterson and put elementary students in there? And I got to give a shout out and kudos to Dr. Wood, Reverend Wood. Met with him, he and Pam Chapman and several other concerned citizens. They understand the significance and the need that pre-K community has to keep using that school for at least the next year. And so the plan we've kind of evolved to, and it could change, is to start Patterson as a K2, maybe as soon as next year, but we're going to let them come up with what they want to do, and then go to K3 the following year, and K4 and K5, so that we don't have to kick the pre-K program out of Patterson right now. Because just like so many people, and every time I come to your station, I look at what I'm going to call Wallace Presbyterian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I look at that and you just say, how much longer do we have to keep looking at all these buildings that are dilapidated and falling apart? And I mean, the experts say it could be 10 to 12 years, but we don't want to wait that long. So those are plans we've got in place. I think everyone understands that the schools that received the most damage, Merritt Brown, Bay High, Jenks, Everett, those are the ones. Merritt Brown, they're back in fully. I mean, you talking about turnaround quick. That was quick. I mean, less than 2 years, they're back in there. Jenks's gym will be ready, hopefully, January, we're hoping. Bay High's got new construction going on. Bay High, people won't realize this. We're going to spend $27 million at Bay High since the hurricane when we get done with that. And those are some big, huge projects there. And we're excited about what the campuses are going to look like and the programs we're going to be able to offer those students in those schools.
All right. Well, I think we've got a lot going on. I appreciate the time you've given us. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Thank you for doing it live, and thank you for listening.
That's no problem. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope we answered some of your questions, and we'll be around on social media. We'll see if there's anything else you want answered. We'll try and get an answer for you. Have a good day.